All right, here we go. Thanks for joining us, everyone. You're about to club. What is it? The 28th or the 29th?
28th.
Has everybody had a good weekend?
Yes.
Me too. Hot.
Well, it's a little cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the middle of the week it was hotter.
Yeah. Hi, Rose. Hi.
Hello.
Today's quote, July 20, sorry, you guys say 28th?
Yeah.
There is but one magnet in the universe, and from it proceeds the magnetization of everything existing. This magnet is, of course, what the Kabbalists term the central spiritual sun, S-U-N, or God. Isis Unveiled, Veil, Volume 1, pages 208. Huh. I mean, this is just a kind of a new way of saying basically what Theosophy is, right?
Yeah, what
Kind
the
of
source,
back to the
what the source of any universe is, and all beings and all intelligence originates.
It's this magnet that is like that every particle is moving towards.
And also coming from.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Hey Anders, welcome.
Hi, Anders.
Good morning.
I would get like centrifugal and centrifugal force. You know, in others.
In and out, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's really that it says, you mentioned the central sun, right?
Central spiritual sun.
Spiritual sun. And we can relate that to the seventh principle, humanity. You know, which is like the planets or the central spiritual sun.
Yeah, what's interesting when she talks about that, you know, she, in the Secret Doctrine and in her Isis Unveiled, you know, she talks about the sun in various different places and various different ways, but she always points out to there's a physical sun which we see, and there's we could say an invisible sun which we don't see, and that everything emanates. The physical sun, she said, is kind of like a lens, a focus for the central spiritual sun. So, yeah.
All right. Well, for anybody that's here this last week, we're kind of continuing from the sevenfold nature of man and everything else. Continuing with chapter 5 in the ocean. So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to start off here at chapter 5. Before we get into it, here she's talking about the lingua sharira, or the astral body, and its functions and powers. We talked about all the different principles a little bit last week. This she's specifically talking about the astral body and its workings in the physical body, and also its place in the sevenfold constitution. So we could say that the astral body is the electromagnetic shell that all the cells of the physical body then organize themselves on. And then also prana, or the life force, then it works as like a sponge for this energy that Justin just mentioned from the central spiritual sun. It works as like a sponge to absorb that energy and then circulate it into all the lives, the physical lives that make up our body. So we're going to start, we'll read just a little bit of this from Judge's Ocean of Theosophy. And Kelly, you want to start at the first break on the bottom where it says, one of the mysteries. Yeah.
Okay. One of the mysteries of physical life is hidden among these lives. Their action forced forward by the life energy called prana or jiva will explain active existence and physical death. They are divided into two classes, one the destroyers, the other the preservers. And these two war upon each other from birth until the destroyers win. In this struggle, the life energy itself ends in the contest because it is life that kills. This may seem heterodox, but in theosophical philosophy, it is held to be the fact. For it is said, the infant lives because the combination of healthy organs is able to absorb the life all around it in space and is put to sleep each day by the overpowering strength of the stream of life. Since the preservers among the cells of the youthful body are not yet mastered by the other class. These processes of going into sleep and waking again are simply and solely the restoring of the equilibrium in sleep and the action produced by disturbing it when awake. It may be compared to the arc electric light, wherein the brilliant arc of light at the point of resistance is the symbol of the waking active man. So in sleep, we are again absorbing and not resisting the life energy. When we wake, we are throwing it off. But as it exists around us like an ocean in which we swim, our power to throw it off is necessarily limited. Just when we wake, we are in equilibrium as to our organs and life. When we fall asleep, we are yet more full of life than in the morning. It has exhausted us. It finally kills the body. Such a contest could not be waged forever, since the whole solar system's weight of life is pitted against the power to resist focused in one small human frame. The body is considered by the masters of wisdom to be the most transitory, impermanent, and illusory of the whole series of the constituents of man. Not for a moment is it the same. Ever changing in motion in every part, it is in fact never complete or finished, though tangible. The ancients clearly perceived this, for they elaborated a doctrine called nitya pralaya, or the continual change in material things, the continual destruction. This is known now to science in the doctrine that the body undergoes a complete alteration and renovation every 7 years. At the end of the first 7 years, it is not the same body it was in the beginning. At the end of our days, it has changed 7 times, perhaps more, and yet it presents the same general appearance from maturity until death. It is a human form from birth to maturity, and it is a mystery science explains not. It is a question pertaining to the cell and to the means whereby the general human shape is preserved.
Okay.
Well, I thought we should have stopped and talked about the very first little paragraph. Oh my goodness. It's dense stuff. I have just an opening question.
Yeah.
Just kind of what's the suggestion here at in the very first paragraph where, is this, in this struggle of life energy itself ends the contest because it is life that kills? Why is that heterodox?
Well, because most people feel that you die because you've run out of life. But this is saying that basically your body burns out because the force of life is so strong. And your body can't rebalance it, resist it. So that,
or like channel it correctly and utilize?
It's so disruptive that it starts disintegrating the cells, as opposed to equalizing and flowing through the cells. All right, come on in. As opposed to your body being able to absorb the life energy, but not absorb too much of the life energy. That let the rest just flow through.
It seems like it's a question then, the difference between being a battery
We're just being overlooked.
Yeah, or we're basically resistors.
Yeah.
If resistors eventually turn out
Hmm.
in a computer.
Oh, yeah,
Or in our-
absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Oh, good, I got the one with the note.
well,
Those are always fun.
that's kind of an interesting thing to think about when it's, because, let's see if I can find that spot yesterday that we talked, okay. So when we ended last week at 33, because, here it says, even science knows that your body changes every 7 years.
Sure.
So by the end of 7 times 7 or 49, you might get a few more cycles, but that's kind of what they're saying. At 49, you're on the downhill slope, or you might not, that might be it for you. But then last week, we're on 33, that middle paragraph. As a collection in the form of man, made up of these constituents, is therefore limited in duration by the laws of the evolutionary period in which it exists. Just now, that it's generally 70 to 100 years, but its possible duration is longer. Thus, there are many in history instances where ordinary persons have lived to be 200 years of age, and by a knowledge of the occult laws of nature, the possible limit of duration may be extended to nearly 400 years. So she's putting out a really wide spectrum here. And if we know, like, there's people that, there's babies that are born and die the day they're born or die within weeks. And there's a few people that live to be over 100. And all the spectrum in between. And there's generally, someone gets between 60 and 90 years is probably the majority of people. But here it's saying if you, with an understanding of the occult laws, or another way to put it is, if you wanted to live longer in a physical body, you would have to know how to equalize this life energy consciously.
And not wear out your cells.
Not wear out yourself, not absorb too much life energy, but also not throw off too much life energy. Because it also said, the part we read today, that the organs are throwing off life energy and their ability to resist it. And she's not telling you this to try and get you to live for 400 years. Because it all depends on what you do. Some people do more in 30 years, positive and negative, than other people do in 100 years. But she's saying, what we consider physical laws are only part of our understanding. That there's even physical laws that, with the right knowledge of how occult forces work, you're able to live in equilibrium with the universe.
And also, remember we talked about Alcott, like on the masters, like he was,
Oh, yeah, it's exactly what happens. Yeah.
he was healing, well, yeah, and they said you're
Like you-
spending, so he obviously did not know the laws of how to preserve.
Or didn't care,
Or didn't care.
Yeah.
Didn't care, yeah.
He liked that popularity. But I mean, a lot of us do. It's,
Yeah, and it's also, it's kind of hard to know, even as a person, their own motivation, because they might, if you're able to heal somebody and you really like helping people, that's a pretty strong motivation to keep doing it. And the other side of that is, well, yeah, you can do that, but by doing that, you're limiting what else you can do with that life force. And so he was working with HPV to get a particular thing done. And the more time he spent being a mesmeric healer, he was still helping people, but their kind of thing was, you're helping people, but you're also not doing what you should be doing. And so it's interesting. HPV as well. She got, really burnt out and sick from how she worked and she had a lot of medical problems.
Mm.
And the masters revived her a couple times. But they even said, we can do this, but we can't do this indefinitely.
Yeah,
So,
she knew she was
She
close
knew.
for a while.
yeah, and she had a lot of medical things
Mhm.
wrong with her and worked really hard and really long hours. In addition to the strain of doing occult things, because in all the different teachings, when they're talking about occult powers, there's a certain, you use up a certain amount of energy doing it.
Mhm.
And there's a certain strain. It's just like it's very similar to like here when they were talking about the steel that makes a bridge. An engineer can figure out how much steel you need to make a bridge to carry a train. And how much steel you need to make a bridge to carry 4 trains on the same bridge or cars. And so there's a mathematical way to figure that out in the based on physical science.
Mhm.
But eventually the vibration of whatever's going over that bridge will cause it to get weaker and weaker and then finally it collapse. It's not just, it doesn't matter how many times you paint the bridge. It's not that the bridge is rusting out, it gets weak. It's that the actual vibrations going over that bridge will cause it.
Just any kind of friction eventually, yeah.
Yeah. And there's certain basic things that they've learned just by humanity, like, something we never really learn or think about, but it's when people are in the army, they teach you how to march. Because they want you to get from point A to point B in a certain way.
Mhm.
But when you're marching over a bridge, you don't march in step. You stop marching together and you march individually.
Oh, exactly.
Because
A
you set the
surface,
vibration. Yeah.
surface area.
World War II, they were trying to develop weapons.
Unfortunate how they had to learn that lesson a couple times, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also they were trying to devise weapons that wouldn't destroy the cities, but would kill the people.
Gas.
So gas was one thing, but even before gas, they figured out, really loud sound.
No.
The problem was it killed the people that were shooting the sound.
Mm.
So they couldn't use it.
Mm.
And the police have it. Our police helicopters have it, and they use it in bursts to disperse crowds.
Mm.
So, and
They used it in war as well.
they used it in war,
I mean,
yeah.
Israel uses it against Palestinians.
Yes.
In Iraq and other places, yeah.
And they used it at the, protest Wall Street, they did protest LA. And it causes you to, doesn't kill you, but, if you went to a really loud death metal concert and they had, bass and drums, it has a minor similar effect.
There's a tool you can buy that's been around for a while that is supposed to, it's called, like audio nausea. And like 60% of people will have a nauseous reaction to this vibration. You can't hear, but like you can like put it in a room and 60% of the people will get nauseous. Like,
Right.
incredible.
And probably, part of the way that works physiologically is because it's having an effect not just on the physical body, but on the astral.
Something, yeah.
Because it's vibratory.
Yeah. Anders has his hand up for a little bit. Anders, you want to unmute?
Yeah. I just, what I read is about when the masters come to meet people, some people are adapted to meet them without the masters adapting their energy. Because like you say, weapons, I mean, they have such a strong and vibrant energy, so normal people have a hard time meeting them in that state. So just the same as some references to high spiritual energy, is something that we can't cope. There's a Christian's quote saying, my father's house is surrounded by darkness. And that is that the spiritual levels adapt, doesn't want to hurt you. So what we experience is darkness, but it's actually a really high spiritual energy. So, I mean, just as Colin explained here, um, there are some things to make us understand how these energies work, and some yogis and some adepts, they know how to develop and still uh, live with that energy, and I guess that's why they can live vibrantly and healthy for such a long time, because they've learned how to do it. Their awareness is high as well. So that's what I've learned.
Yeah.
It's like
Thanks,
what we were talking about before, that darkness that's actually, Akasha.
Yeah.
Swimming in this darkness isn't just darkness.
I was gonna add, I was gonna mention it before, but, Anders brought it up, and it was, there are yogis that, choose to never release their life seed. And so that's preserving your energy as well.
That's in a number of traditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also this part that, since Anders brought it up, there's also this part on 38 where it talks about prana and jiva. Where it starts at the bottom, it says, strictly speaking, prana is breath, and as breath is necessary for the continuance on the bottom of 37, the continuance of life in the human machine, that is the best word. Jiva means life, and is also applied to the living soul. For the life in general is derived from the supreme life itself. Jiva is therefore capable of general application, whereas prana is more particular. It cannot be said that one has a definite amount of this life energy, which will fly back to its source should the body be burned, but rather that it works with whatever be the mass of matter in it. And so, before we started the class, we were talking a little bit about Akasha and the astral light, and also how adepts that are not in the body, like bodhisattvas and nirmanakayas, live in this plane of Akasha and can communicate with beings if we can raise our consciousness to their plane. And so it's hard for them to come to our plane. I mean, they can do it, but as Anders explained, there's a certain, we could say in a crude way, there's a certain energy or a certain voltage in the material that they live in. We would look at it if they were to visit us on this plane and weren't born into a physical body, but it would look like a physical body. It would actually be a projection. It wouldn't be physical like we see it, but it would be similar to what people in seances would say when they see a ghost. They're not really seeing a ghost. They're seeing the material on the plane behind the physical that is then projected an image on. It looks like the physical. And so in this higher state of consciousness, we don't need prana. We're always, that part of us doesn't dissipate when our body dies, but it's living in this field of jiva, and jiva is flowing through it. So in a certain sense, there's that part of us which reincarnates that is in jiva, but when we're incarnated, there's a part of us that is in a step down power mode, we could say, or energy mode in prana.
I have a question, maybe it's out of topic, but that just like triggered me this question. Does the soul change in every incarnation?
Well, that's
Or the soul stays the same?
a really good question. It's also Like
You want to
when
repeat
you,
your question for,
yeah, repeat it there for a second, because it's a good way to, yeah.
you got that one.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, can you say it a little bit louder for the people online?
Okay. Does, sorry, I speak so
So you
low.
meant does the soul remain unchanged through incarnations?
My
or-
question is like, if the personality changes every time that we incarnate and the soul is a vehicle between the spirit and the body, does the soul remains the same? Not like, involved, like, for sure, if it's the same every incarnation, you will have like some degree of change in it, right? To the experience that they already had. But my question is, the soul remains the same? Is this vehicle the same in every incarnation? Or is this posed in certain like cycles, meaning death and life, or transcendental cycles? Or like, how
Right.
does it work, like the life cycle of a soul?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's also what, in a sense, it's what Buddhist, there's two divisions of Buddhist schools, now there's one. And there was a debate, is there a soul? Or does the soul end after each? And the Buddha wouldn't answer. And so he left the two students to debate, is there a soul or is there not a soul? So when he left, the monks with him said, well, Master, why did you not answer him? He said, well, if I said there was no soul, then the student would think that this is one life and that's what you have. If I told, and he would try to do really good. If I told them there is a soul, there's a tendency to put off till the next to do what you should be doing now. So they're both right in the sense that you have to know what you classify soul as. So in Theosophy, we're talking about the sevenfold division. So there's the physical body, there's the astral body, the prana or the energy with it, and then there's desire. So that we could say, and it's linked with mind, because we know everybody has mind, some aspect of it. So that we could say is a personal, or in Theosophy, the animal soul. Then there's a higher aspect of mind. There's buddhi, or universal consciousness, and then there's atma, or the spirit. And so our essence, our soul, is this higher aspect of it. Manas, buddhi, atma. There's not, I don't have buddhi and you have buddhi. Buddhi is everybody. We could say it's all soul. And it's all the highest level of intellection, but not intellect like we use it here. Intellect on this plane, no matter if you're Einstein and you're using intellect, it's still the lowest level of mind. Intuition is a higher aspect, and that's what's linked to this buddhi soul nature. But the thing is, your question, does the same soul come back? Yes, but it's also developed. Each life, we learn lessons from all of our good and bad experiences. And that accumulates to what we call soul, or higher manas. That incarnates in the next life, whether we remember any of our past lives or not. The understanding that we have access to it if we can reach that higher aspect of mind. So some stuff we get glimpses of in a day, in a regular life. Like you might go through life and you meet someone for the first time and it just seems like you already know them. So a lot of times we could say that's a little glimpse of this soul memory. And sometimes we might know them and it might not be a good feeling. There might be no reason to not like a person or to have any opinion about them. We just met them, but there's something about them that disturbs us.
Can I bring up something for clarification? Just
Yeah.
to bring it way back, maybe, I don't know, not, but in Theosophy, just the vocabulary, we have the soul is the evolving part of us, right? And then, but spirit spirit is higher than soul theosophically, and is spirit the only thing that's unchanged through reincarnation, or is even it conditioned and unchanged? Because I know the soul, they say soul is ever evolving. And that's kind of like the word that goes with soul in Theosophy, but like, I'm not as clear on spirit.
Well, spirit it doesn't evolve, it's the power to be and to witness experience. And that's we all are.
It's Rigpa, it's Vidya, like it's
Well,
pristine consciousness, unconditioned consciousness, or unconditioned perception, not consciousness, I guess.
it would seem that perception and consciousness is linked to buddhi and manas.
Yeah.
And the source of that perception and the witness of that perception is the spirit. You can't separate them because the three are one.
Right.
But as trying to get
there is no
an
independent
understanding.
soul and spirit in, they're part of this.
There would be,
Sevenfold nature.
yeah, there would be no soul without spirit.
Right.
And it's conscious. We should,
And spirit needs soul to move through this.
well,
And to
you know,
incarnate.
all the teachings have, you know, like I think it's the Greek teachings that say the gods get experience from the humans.
Yeah.
Which is another way of saying your soul is getting consciousness and experience through your personality. And the oversoul is getting all the experience from all the separate personalities, which only seem separate on this plane. But what I've experienced through all my lives and what you've experienced and Sasha's experience is collected to a really giant experience. But mine is a little bit different than yours. And Nastasha's is a little bit different than both of ours and Kelly's. But all that experience is buddhi and atma. And you know, it seems kind of complex, but it's really not as complex as we kind of make it. If you think that there's certain things that as a soul you've already learned, and there's certain things that you need to learn, so the personality is learning it. And it's also making up for the bad karma that you've created among other people in those previous lives. And so a big question, like most people, they want to know, well, if reincarnation is real, why don't I remember? Well, if you remembered what your previous life was, it would be hard to do what you need to do in this life. It's almost like saying you're going to school and you have to take a test at the end of the week. And the teacher says, well, you don't really need to study, just bring your book. And I'll tell you what page the answers are on. Your soul already has gone through experience. But to make sure you've learned the lesson, we might have to go to a similar experience. Or we might have to go through the experience as a different form. Like this experience, I'm a guy. But my last experience, I might have been a woman. I might have been a mother before. This experience, I'm a son. There's only certain things I can experience as that type of a personality. And so we all are gradually getting more and more experience. But at the same time, at some point, we'll get glimpses of these previous lives. But it's only useful if it doesn't detour us from what we're supposed to do this life. I mean, if you knew that the last 3 lives, you were a king and a queen and the head of a country. You were the Roman Empire one time, and the next time
You ate your children.
you ate your children, you know? And then the next life, you were a king in India, and then the next life, you were Hitler. How would you face the day? How would you go through the day? So, in a sense, we all feel like we were probably something better before. Or maybe I deserve more this life. And it might be that you do deserve more in this life, but you have to learn something first. So I think, it's hard for us to, as personalities, to kind of look at it objectively and say, is it good? Would it be better if I was the king this time? Or would I really create a lot of bad karma because I would misuse the power of being the king?
You're not ready to be.
Yeah.
Very good, so.
Well, there's a yes and no answer for her question. And also, in Theosophy, you actually need to learn the nomenclature, really.
Yeah.
Because when you say spirit, it's not like saying, oh, I saw your spirit, or I saw my mom's spirit after she died. So in Theosophy, spirit, the term spirit is universal. So it's everywhere, it permeates everything. Then, Buddhi, we might say spirit, soul, universal soul, and then human soul. So in this case, it's the human soul. It has the duality to remain the same and also to change. It has a dual aspect of mind. So there's one aspect that changes with the personality to a point. There's one aspect that never changes. It always remains the same. Now, when I say soul, we are into saying my soul, your soul, her soul. Also, there's the idea that there's only one soul. So when we speak of different aspects, that is what it is. Different aspects of the same soul, different aspects of the same principle. And we say, we just went to the sevenfold principle in nature and humanity, but it's always one, but with different aspects. So in this case, just to end it up, when we learn that spirit permeates everything, then Buddhi, universal soul, is sort of us, manas, is that the duality where we have mind, and the mind that reflects into the personality, this Roberto right here. It's a ray from that. So therefore, that ray is what is the aspect that may change with the living, with experiences of the living personality. But the higher aspect of that mind, which is the third aspect, Alma, Buddhi, Manas, the third, it has this mysterious duality that Blavatsky says. It's very mysterious for us to understand. And therefore that is the yes and no answer. If it ever remains the same, one party does. And then one aspect we can say it's changeable to a point. But again, it's really up to each student to kind of digest some of the philosophy of Theosophy to distinguish it from other parts. And then you notice that what we see in sciences is not a spirit. You mentioned ghost. A ghost is not a spirit, in Theosophy. It's something else. But, it's real for the person that sees it, but it's not really a spirit as Alma. Right? It's just a different projection, as he mentioned. That's a lot to say about that.
Well, it's her question, so she can go ahead.
Okay,
and I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just like, I want to clarify that my question is more in a sense like, well, first of all, I do understand the differences between soul and spirit. So the fact that I brought these two aspects of being is because in my understanding, spirit is what remains, is what is eternal, non-change, etc.
Yeah.
And the soul is a vehicle for the spirit to have experience in the human body. So that's under my understanding. A soul is a vehicle.
Right.
Soul as a vehicle. So going back to life force, what triggered my question is the soul life force, or like its interaction with the life force, or in this coming and going through like every incarnation, has like any termination of itself life force or spirit to commune and experience here on the material realm? Because, for example, there's people that says like trading your soul is not such a big deal because it's just the soul, right? So that means an objectification of it, right?
Right.
It becomes not like a source, but merchandise, to put it like in capitalist terms, you know? It's a merchandise.
Trading your soul?
It's a trade, it's a
Commodity.
a commodity. Thank you.
Right.
In these terms of like material world, even before capitalism existed, I'm guessing, right? Because I don't really trust history.
Right.
But yeah, that's my question. Because also there's people that claim, for example, like, and also this has to do with quantum mechanics.
Right.
It's like the fact that everything is happening at the same time, contained in a single point in space and time. It's just like your frequency that you're choosing to experience is A or B, right?
Right.
But everything is like the absolute and the nothingness contained in the same point of existence. So in those terms, my soul, in theory, should be able to exist in any point in space and time.
Right.
It's just like its attention or its action as a vehicle is synchronized in a specific frequency, right? To serve the purpose of spirit having this experience in this specific reincarnation.
Right.
What if in my past life I trade my soul? Or what if there's like, I don't know if this is actually real. I'm just like,
Sure.
but
It's selling your soul at the crossroads, kind of.
yeah. Or what if I was an offering? My soul was an offering.
Right.
I didn't have like an actual choice. My soul was an offering, and I was sacrificed in some back in some incarnation, or in the future.
Right.
Because it exists in every point, right? So my question is, what happened to that piece of my soul, or my soul in general? Like,
Your soul you don't lose. That's who you are. So if you were sacrificed, they only sacrificed your personality. And your soul isn't something you can give away. It's what you are. That's the thing. It's like, that's a misclaimer that people say you can trade your soul with. They don't understand really what soul is. You say it's a vehicle. That's true. Your soul is a vehicle of experience, but it's also your point of awareness. You brought up an interesting point with talking about quantum physics, that everything is one. In any particular point you could experience based on a vibration, which is what Theosophy is trying to get people to understand, that your soul, which is your spirit, which is also universal soul, everybody, there's, like Roberto said, there's one. That's everybody. that's what you are. That's everything. You're that, but you also have your own consciousness. And that consciousness can connect and identify and feel as this one, which is everybody, or it can feel and know and experience as the group of all the experiences that you've been through as a conscious soul, or it can experience just being a one-point personality and not distracted by the higher level of you, but it's a different vibration and it's a different state of energy. So that's what all those questions you're asking are right, but you can't really give away your soul. All you can do is detach from a particular experience, from a particular personality. Say say one of your lives you were Attila the Hun and you killed a lot of people. So you create a lot of bad karma. And that's weakening this connection to the oversoul or to the one soul that we are, and to your individual experience. Because you've created a bunch of experience that you're a decent person, not so bad person, a really good person. Then you turn out to be a really bad person. You cause a lot of pain, you cause a lot of destruction. You die as that personality. And then when you come back again, now you're Adolf Hitler. So those kind of personalities, you start losing this connection of experience because you're so much out of balance with the universe. So you're losing that aspect of soul. All that you've created, you have the karma of all that you've created, but now this connection to the one that we all are, you're making a weaker and weaker connection by your personal choices through different personalities. You can't really give up your soul, but eventually that soul will be so locked out from everybody else's experience that you'll be passed up in the universe. But you can't, that aspect that is one, it's just those personalities will be sloughed off the same way that as if we're trying to extract gold from iron and all the steel is melted and the gold comes to the top and then the rest of the steel is tossed off. Eventually all those experiences will be tossed off and that will be the material trillions of years from now that humans that come back have to use that to start building physical bodies and retraining it with this soul experience. So you can't ever really lose your soul, you are soul. And it's a really good question because, a lot of times people feel like they've done so many bad things that they've given up their soul. They've stained it, which you have. You've created a lot of karma, but if you're conscious of that, then you at least have the opportunity to change.
Like
and start.
Margarita.
Yeah, like Milarepa, the story of it's a really good story of someone that learned a bunch of occult powers and then he used them in a way very personal to cause destruction. And then he had to relearn kind of what he had done and start using his powers in a good way. But yeah, it's a really good way to understand what we're trying to discuss because there's so many mistaken ideas about soul and what soul is and about, what is the purpose of life? I mean, everyone at some point wonders, well, what is the purpose of life? And that's why all these different traditions talk about it in kind of different ways, but it's really trying to get us to remember this aspect of soul that we really are. You know, and Nastasha brought up a really good point. If you knew that, you know, your last lifetime you cooked and ate your children, how would you feel this time around?
And there's a story in the myth of in the Republic to where, the soul went into the valley, and it's a description of a gentleman who died and passed into the other life. He comes back.
You said her?
Yeah, the myth
Yeah.
of and he comes back and he tells the story of what he experienced. He wasn't burnt on the pyre. But one of the things that was mentioned was, one of the souls, chose the next life, and he chose to be a king. But he rushed for that choice to be a king. And when, that demarcation occurred to where he would enter the land of forgetfulness, forget of the past, that he came to see that he was going to eat his children. That's why I brought it up. And he was in horror. He wanted to change his mind, and it was too late. So there's a training of there's a training, and I don't want to bring in other terms, but because HPV does talk about Plato, and Plato being one of the initiates, I bring up Plato. And I study different traditions. I'm a perennialist. One of my main studies is Plato and the Neoplatonists and Hellenism. And so as you were talking, I was kind of wondering too, your foundation, I'm just wondering like where you, if it was in the Vedas or Hinduism or whatever, just out of curiosity. But like I was thinking of the Meno shows the act of remembering, and through the process of remembering, and how this gentleman knew geometry, though he didn't know. He didn't remember it, but he knew it. So we're in the process of remembering. And then Phaedo talks about the soul, life and death. And does the soul reincarnate? I mean, these are things so there were things I wouldn't bring up because you clarified your question further. Timaeus describes a likely story of the creation of the cosmos down to the universe, to the earth, to man, to animals. So, and that's one thing where Colin brought up about the universal soul. There's the eternal nature. So, and then there were other things that I was thinking of. The Republic talks about the constitution of the souls. It's not a political treatise like people think it is. That's only an analogy. But it talks about the different constitutions of the soul, the tyrannical soul, the democratic soul, the aristocratic soul, and it's a training. So, back to the myth of Odysseus, who experienced great tribulation in his life, he had the last place to choose, and he chose a life that minded his own business and that was a quiet life. So there's an element that we choose our next life, and we're in preparation for that. It's the soul that we are. I don't want to use wrong terminology.
Yeah, that helps.
And so, because another term I was going to bring into is the self, capital SELF, self. So you clarified your question further, so that's why I wasn't even going to bring up some of this, but I find within the dialogues of Plato, in the writings of Plato, these ideas are discussed. And it's different terminology, but defined similarly, just like earlier where they were asking, he was asking about what, Manakaya?
Nirmanakaya and a bodhisattva.
right, Sanskrit versus, Tibetan language. So that's where I get, is Colin's always talking and you're always talking about, and it's always when I'm here, with Theosophy, I'm always correlating, the terminology. And there's times I brought up terminology and some people sitting around the table don't understand the terminology from, say, a Platonic sense, so it gets misunderstood. So sometimes I tend to be quiet. So, but anyway, so I don't think that was helpful, but I was really, I admire your question.
That was a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there's a lot of
But-
Plato and Platonics on this. Yeah, totally.
And one of the things I kept thinking was that when you were saying your vehicle,
Anders have a hand up there.
Not mine.
when you were referring to vehicle, I mean, my mind immediately went to our physical body as a vehicle here in this plane for our soul experience. But then there's the higher with, you refer to the spirit, so.
We should go to page 52. 52 in the ocean. You have the ocean there, Anders, page 52. We're gonna jump ahead a little bit, Anders, to page 52, where it talks about manas.
Yeah, you show it on the screen, so I follow that.
Okay,
Here we are.
okay. Justin, you want to read, starting at the bottom of 52, it says the fifth principle is manas?
Yeah.
And then just read all of 53. We'll probably stop somewhere in 54,
Okay.
but it addresses her question to get it started again.
The fifth principle is manas in the classification adopted by Mr. Sinnott.
Well, wait 1 second. Go up just above that where it says, so from neither of these two,
Gotcha.
just
So from neither of these two have we yet gained the words needed for describing the fifth, sixth, and seventh principles, those which make up the Trinity, the real man, the immortal pilgrim. The fifth principle is manas in the classification adopted by Mr. Sinnott and is usually translated mind. Other names have been given to it, but it is the knower, the perceiver, the thinker, the thinker. The sixth is buddhi, or spiritual discernment. The seventh is atma, or spirit, the ray from the absolute being. The English language will suffice to describe in part what manas is, but not buddhi or atma, and will leave many things relating to manas undescribed. That's a constant in this study. The course of evolution developed the lower principles and produced at last the form of man with a brain of better and deeper capacity than that of any other animal. But this man in form was not man in mind and needed the fifth principle, the thinking, perceiving one, to differentiate him from the animal kingdom and to confer the power of becoming self-conscious. The monad was imprisoned in these forms, and that monad is composed of atma and buddhi. For without the presence of the monad, evolution could not go forward. Going back for a moment to the time when the races were devoid of mind, the question arises, who gave the mind? Where did it come from? And what is it? It is the link between the spirit of God above and the personal below. It was given to the mindless monads by others who had gone all through this process ages upon ages before in other worlds and systems of worlds, and therefore came from other evolutionary periods which were carried out and completed long before the solar system had begun. This is the theory, strange and unacceptable today, but which must be stated if we are to tell the truth about Theosophy. And this is the only handing on what others have said before. The manner in which this light of mind was given to the mindless men can be understood from the illustration of one candle lighting many. Given one candle, the numerous unlightened ones, it follows that from one light, the others may also be set aflame. So in the case of manas, it is the candle of flame, the mindless men having four elementary principles of body, astral life, astral body, life, and desire. are the unlighted candles that cannot light themselves. The sons of wisdom, who are the elder brothers of every family of men on any globe, have the light derived by them from others who reach back, and yet farther back in endless procession with no beginning or end. They set fire to the combined lower principles and the monad, thus lighting up Manas in the new men and preparing another great race for final initiation. This lighting up of the fire of Manas is symbolized in all great religions and Freemasonry. In the East, one priest appears holding a candle lighted at the altar, and thousands of others light their candles from this one. The Parsis also have their sacred fire, which is lighted from some other sacred flame.
Read the next paragraph and then we'll stop, please.
Manas, or the thinker, is the reincarnated being, the immortal who carries the results and values of all the different lives lived on earth or elsewhere. Its nature becomes dual as soon as it is attached to the body. For the human brain is a superior organism, and Manas uses it to reason from premises to conclusions. This also differentiates man from animal. For the animal acts from automatic and so-called instinctual impulses, whereas the man can use reason. This is the lower aspect of the thinker or Manas, and not, as some have supposed, the highest and best gift belonging to man. Its other, and in Theosophy, higher aspect is the intuitional, which knows and does not depend on reason. The lower and purely intellectual is nearest to the principle of desire, and is thus distinguished from its other side, which is affinity for the spiritual principles above. If the thinker then becomes wholly intellectual, the entire nature begins to tend downward. For intellect alone is cold, heartless, selfish, because it is not lighted up by the two other principles of Buddhi and Atma.
Okay, we can stop there for a second.
Can I just say one thing? I just wanted to point out that in philosophical Greek, there's a difference between intellect and intellecting.
And what is that difference?
And the intellecting is the higher, I would say, the intuition. So it's not the same. I wanted to say that.
Okay.
There's a difference in terms.
Yeah, and it's good to know when people are reading other teachings, because you're trying to understand from a different perspective, and you want to get how they use the term to
Well,
get
if we're going to
the
synthesize the wisdom traditions, it's
Right.
the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Does
did that-
anybody have any questions?
Did that address some
Yeah.
of your question? See, it does point out that there's an immortal part of us, which we never lose. And when it's talking about this lighting of the flame, that gets to the point that there's one mind, there's one soul, but we experience it individually. And so we get that mind from the one. And so because of that, we also have the ability to change the polarity of our consciousness so that we're not just aware of the personality that we are now, but we're aware of our other individualized soul experience. And then from that level of consciousness, we can then raise up to this one consciousness, which is knowing. And that gets to that, you talked about the collection of everything that's happening all at once. Or there's everything that has happened and everything that can happen is in this, we could say, ball of possibilities. And we have the ability to tune our awareness into that. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes the ability to focus our mind to these levels of consciousness. But it's doable. That's what makes an adept. And that's what makes, some of the teachings that all the different traditions have. It's people that was able to bring that experience down and then try to explain it in the language of the people at that time for their culture.
The true philosophy, according to Plato, there's philosophy, but it's not true philosophy. True philosophy is separating the soul from the body. It's the practice of separating the soul from the body. Wisdom, death, life. It's a practice. And so, but there's further defining of true philosophy, which is the mystic. It's the few. It's not the many. And so that's another clarification in regards to terminology.
Actually,
And he's clear with that,
Yeah.
you know.
actually, I had like a discussion about with a philosopher back in my country, like a year, 2 years ago. And it was like, I think, well, now I think I think different, but the main thing is the way we're debating was the fact that is the mind physical or is not? So that moment I was saying, yeah, the mind is physical because it needs the brain to operate and it is built with physical experience, but now I think different actually.
Where's your home?
Costa Rica,
Where?
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
Oh, okay.
Oh, fun. I love Costa Rica.
Okay, I have one comment on. Here's something to say about the Platon.
Platón.
Platon. And they say is the universal idea o prototipos. Sí.
Prototypes.
Prototypes. Oh, me vas a ayudar en español, por favor.
Sí, sí.
Okay. In the same way, in Theosophy, I find that one word is magnificent word. It's fohat. 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 Okay. Because we're talking about too much about energy. And you say about mecánica cuántica.
Quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics. And that is very similar with Theosophy. Incredible also, when I start to look at it, I say, this one is Theosophy.
Yeah.
Because you say about the mind and the material. We're thinking something and we project in the material.
Yeah.
It's very simple, right? Look at
Oh, thank you so much.
Look, es very, but estoy hablando chico. But it's very simple to say we're thinking and then we are projecting. Okay, that material quantica, they say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a one premio Nobel, the
Yes.
Nobel,
It's a matter of
the board.
of how you observe.
They have to be observed
Yeah.
because that's the premio Nobel. They say one vibration goes through the little thing and they project over there with the material.
Yeah.
But they have to have somebody to observe
The
that.
slur test. Yeah.
Mhm. So it's the same thing here with the energy. We need to observe because like in physics say anything is loose, only transform.
It's attention.
Is that true?
Actually, now, well, if I can.
Oh, yes.
Please,
Okay.
please.
Actually, yesterday I wrote it down on my phone because I didn't want to forget. I was thinking about social media and also New Age speeches. And, you know, sometimes I just go through my phone because I don't really want to face my thoughts. They can get pretty heavy sometimes. Wait. Where's my phone? And I was thinking, oh, there you go. I wrote the note. New age self-employed social media, saying like influencers, not just influencers, like in a matter of fact, they are influencers, but they are not present themselves as influencers. They can be present as a mystical practitioner as well, especially if they are like into the new age community, as we know now. So that's what I refer when I say self-employed. It's like you are employing yourself, presenting yourself in social media under these speeches or giving these discourses. So again, new age self-employed social media call the public on to show themselves and say an opinion, or to talk, to say the truth within them, to show themselves, to teach, you know. I get this a lot. So that's why I was thinking of that. That's like my feed. It's like, I don't know, it's like a random person just saying like, kind of like an oracle and saying like, the spirit is telling me to communicate to the collective that you need to put out outside your ideas and to talking, and because this is a gift from a spirit and you are just keeping it to yourself. They are calling to an action for people to speak and show themselves in social media as an oracle. So again, show themselves and say an opinion, to talk, is a surveillance capitalism merchandise in order to maintain the tension between consuming and producing, therefore generating views and retention due to the tension between observing and acting. So consuming and providing our attention is an asset in the fourth stage of capitalism. Due to the pace of social media, attention is the most important and is what it gets monetized.
Sure.
So putting it like, it's like, I don't know if that happened before, probably, but in a sense of like focusing on energy, as you were saying, there's also like this treatment of attention, right? And I feel like everything is kind of like intertwined. It is, as a matter of fact. But like, I feel like you know, that intertwinement, I don't know, like
That entanglement,
thank you.
entanglement.
That entanglement, I don't know if it was like that before, but now I feel like it's kind of like coming to a surface. Because you cannot deny that there's forces and actions in the material world that kind of like trick you into put your attention in things that they are not serving your purpose.
Well, yeah, that they're serving the purpose to sell you something and to monetize the people that are attracting your attention.
And they are monetizing your energy.
Well,
If you let them.
If you
let
That's part of the practice.
Monetizing attention,
But
though,
see-
that's a really good point. That's
Yeah,
a really
but
good
see,
way to put
that-
it. You allowed it, yes.
Yeah, that's the point, but that's the thing.
You have
It
the
only-
choice.
It only works if you give them your attention.
Right.
No, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like it's so devilish. Like, it's just attention.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not, attention is a tension
Yeah,
between.
yeah.
Well, the idea of Theosophy is to study and to get to know what am I really? What am I? And we just went through the 7 principles, you know, which is 7 aspects of ourselves on the one. And we were reading about the 5th, counting from up, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, which is the 5th, or counting up, you know, body, Astral, Prana, Kama, and the 5th is Manas, mind. So in Theosophy, we learn what and who we are. So by understanding that, then you kind of get involved in different aspects of things in life and online too. And before you know, certain things become, or you lose interest in certain things because it just involves personalities and personal interests. In Theosophy, this will help you to get away from that. From our own, you know, point of view, your interest changes. Then you're not looking into beneficial things for persons or personalities, but what is beneficial for others? Not in monetary terms or whatever terms, but then you begin to change yourself, and there's another way to help others and also to teach others. And it's something that becomes, we might say, developing in yourself because it's already been there. It's always been there. And as Nastasia was using the idea of correspondence, you know, the similitude of the ideas, then you see that when you start reading other things, but if you learn what Theosophy is, then you're gonna see a lot of things everywhere else that has to do with the personal, the transitory, and the eternal. That aspect when you said about, you know, the soul. So there's a part in ourselves that never changes, that never dies, never loses anything. It's always there. But we have to learn what is it, and we have to live to it. We also read that one candle can turn other candles. Now that one candle that lighted up the other ones didn't lose anything. Now the other ones were able to get light up because the fire was already within them. You just needed a little spark. So that's in ourselves. If we light up that spark, we become aware of what is really the world. And then you become involved in different things and aspects in your life, your family, you know, your friends and everything. And, you know, you get involved in online on things, and then you see, is this really beneficial for people, for humanity? Do I want to spend my time, you know, giving them that part that they can gain from me? You know, like you were saying, they're commercializing your whatever.
Your attention.
Yeah. So yeah, your attention. So well, you know, then you can figure that out for yourself and say, are they or are they not? So what is my attention? In Theosophy, your attention becomes into the all, the one soul of the world. And this is just worse. That doesn't mean that I can do that already, but you know, it's what we learn, you know, to detach from a lot of things that really in time they become just secondary things. Maybe right now they're very important, but in time, a lot of things become secondary and you go to other issues. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Along with what he was saying, I just wanted to say, a real life recent event that captured, well, the world's attention, minus a handful of people, I'll just say a handful of people, but look at how they manipulated people March 2020 with the so-called contagion virus.
Well, some people feel it was manipulated. A lot of people died. A lot of people
That's
died.
another whole
Well,
conversation.
that's the reality of it.
No.
It's relative stuff.
No, but a lot of, it's not relative. A lot of people died as a result of the treatment that was given to people.
Well, that's a
what
percent.
changed.
That's your opinion.
It's not an opinion.
I don't know if it's for this class.
No.
Yeah, and it's not for this class, and it's not.
But I was
You can
gonna
make your
say,
point.
but
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
point is all the attention that was given to
Sure.
it. And so there were others that chose not to give the attention to it. And so that is an example of a practice of walking in the midst of what the activity of the world going on around them. So I just wanted to bring that up as an example of something that he had shared. There was one other thing, but I lost it as a result of interruptions, so,
Sorry, if it comes back to let me know.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna point out something nice that I feel.
oh, I know, because
Oh, go ahead.
there's a difference between capitalism and crony capitalism.
And crony capitalism?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So there's a huge difference. So, because initial capitalism was caring about your brother and having empathy towards your brother. And Adam Smith had The Wealth of Nations, but he also had the theory of moral sentiments, which was all about empathy towards your brother. You don't have the one without the other. You have to have both.
Yeah. The thing I was gonna say about the part I love about the candles that I think that we don't pay as much attention to is if that first candle gets put out, it doesn't put out all the other candles that is sparked. It's not that the candles it lights are not dependent on the initial candle for their light anymore. There's no intermediary anymore.
It's all from the one source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I love that part. It's just important to kind of remember, it's not like the king vampire, where if you kill the king vampire, all the.
And the fire was latent into the unlighted candles.
Right.
It's an analogy again. Those are analogies to say that humanity, because it's speaking of the body first, without the mind. Speaking of humans, without, well, not without mind, but the idea, which is a little bit complicated about rounds and races, but the idea is that humanity got lighted up by these powers or whatever they call, because we have that latent power in ourselves. So now we're thinking, and therefore in Theosophy, mind is not physical. The only thing that is physical is the brain, and we use
It's a vehicle.
it's a vehicle, yes.
Well,
So-
substance.
And
It's substance,
substance, okay.
but it's not material on this planet.
Right, not on this one.
But there has to be substance for any vehicle.
Right, yes. We might say very
There's
shallow,
an astral brain.
Yeah. very shallow substance.
Yeah.
Almost like, to us, almost like no substance in a way. That's why Alma Manas are called the place of Arupa, no form. To us.
I want to say one thing, and I want to be done saying stuff, because I love that it's the stuff about attention, and I think that's why, that's why every Buddha and every great, teacher of meditation in the world is that single point of focus that's so necessary. And just culturally, the universal karma where we're at, it's getting harder and harder for all of us, not just the newer generations. It's getting people that were great meditators for 20 years, all of a sudden fell in love with their phone maybe, and had some isolation, different things happen in life, and it's just like that's something we have to really study for our entire lives. It's just staying focused on the things that are valued, and not just constant distraction for just that tiny little dopamine thing, or just to ignore things that are of value or that maybe seem a little bit riskier, or those things that need our attention.
Well, attention is a very powerful tool, and it's a very individualized power. Yeah. And that's why people buy for it. Because if they have your attention, then they have a certain aspect of control. So what you focus on is where you're trying to grow, where you're trying to grow to.
And the bottom foundational meaning of karma is action and will. Period. Within the Sanskrit, it's action. It's not all this other stuff added to it. Actions have consequences one way or the other, but it's action.
But you talk about Buddha, and they say the history, they say the Buddha has the alignment under the Bodhi tree. Okay? But it's a symbol. It's not a symbol, because the Bodhi, that's what we're talking about, or is the columna vertebral.
The spine.
The spine go through the brain. So it's with only the technology, the letter is nothing they say, but behind the letter is something much profound,
Profound, yeah.
Because that is the difference. Also, Buddhi means universal. So it doesn't idea about Buddhi. It's not about one guy, because I don't know if it exists or not, but that's not the problem. The problem is we didn't continue the same path, because after that one, when the man touched something is destroyed, not also destroyed by the tergiversar.
They definitely edit it.
Yeah, tergiversar, it's like mistreatment of information. It's like
Because they put it on the convenience for the human, for the
The
convenience.
integrity of the information is, you know,
So we have to be careful in that.
absolutely. I think that's why it's so important that some of the teachings have lineages and have like history and things like that, so we can like, so you know, you don't have to jump on every flash in the pan idea and stuff like that. And if it's something that seems like a new idea, you can do what Theosophy does and find those golden threads and find where it came from, because no one's having brand new ideas these days, especially like spiritually. So
Under the sun.
yeah, exactly.
Well, also, you know, a lot of, and when you look at it on the deep level, a lot of the various teachings have the same teachings.
Right.
You just have to understand their terms.
That's why it's so lovely. That's why we all love Plato so much, is because he's such the, I mean, Blavatsky called him the bridge herself, and then she was a wonderful bridge. What, 4,000 years later, something like that? 5,000? Oh.
Oh, the idea also they mentioned about karma, where it said it is said that we're living in the Kali Yuga, the obscure, and that has to do, I think, it's not really so much technology, because things they're not either good or bad. It's how we use things.
Yeah.
So distractions, humanity has had distractions always. So I think it's the idea, like the study of Plato or Theosophy, whatever, that it kind of brings our attention to see what are we really, what is really what we can call real and not real. And the voice of the silence speaks a lot of that. And it has a, let's say, it's like a training manual, because it has the steps or the paramitas, which are steps in ourselves. They're not outside. They're not something you have to go and buy and grab. That's within yourself. So therefore, even though the karma is pretty bad, we may say, then we decide to how to live our lives. And that changes our karma too. And the idea that if I think the karma is really bad, maybe it's really good. You know, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe I'm looking at it as bad because maybe it's good for my soul. There's an article, Judge.
Yeah.
In Buddhism, in Dzogchen, there's what an antidote for every poison.
Yeah, you know, yeah. So it's always the perspective that we have about things that we judge, you know, being good or bad. So maybe it's the opposite, or maybe it's neither or. But then you learn at least not to identify with any aspect of it, and you can have a better life, and you can give also a better life around yourself with your thinking and behavior. But you know, it's not easy to do, but you can meditate too, you know, and although we live in Kali Yuga, you don't have to be in Kali Yuga.
Yeah, it was just like that prisoner mindset. You don't
Right.
have to be in prison to be. But it's a lot bigger with Kali Yuga though, because we're going to be in Kali Yuga for many life sentences, not just one.
And we'll be again in 5,000 years to what is it, or something,
432,000.
We'll be finding like giant bugs by then or something.
Then there's the whole discussion of time.
And there's that too, yeah, exactly.
So-
What we're talking
By
about.
this time, yeah.
Because somewhere, yeah, it's already over.
It's,
Yeah.
And it hasn't started,
it's that
you know?
space in between two
Yeah.
pictures being taken.
Exactly.
It's,
I'm
The two
fine.
self.
I'm fine.
So yeah, both are important, you know.
time is.
Yeah, what is time really? And that's the idea of being focused on something, you know, or also what is the other word? Anyway, that's it.
I just have 3 notes with, like, I want to share on regards to karma.
Please.
I do think, and I think this might be taboo, or should be treated as taboo, like in spiritual teachings, because this kind of like gives libre albedrío, like
Free will.
free will, like a whole entire different spectrum or like of what you could do, right? It's like, well, the first thing is like good or evil, like more in terms of like light and shadow or darkness. Well, not the true darkness, but like, you know, what's supposed to be good or what is chaos and what's like more order. Yeah, in those terms. It acts in my perspective, for based on how I perceive that this reality works as we know it right now. It works in a sense of like mechanically as like osmosis. Like it gets so heavy outside or so dark outside, so you can light up from the inside because of the osmosis that happens. Like it's like an osmosis reaction. The second will be there is no such. We live in a polarized reality, but there's no such a thing of like being good or being bad. There's just a sense of integration. And adding as like the el compañero was saying, is Roberto was saying, is that because I'm like, there's no way that you get to do so much harm in this realm and being so significant as a historical figure or as an idol or whatever. You're put in a pedestal. So it's kind of like, what if those persons are actually super evolved souls that just come here and they have to do this performance? And it's like,
That's a thought.
Which
Yeah,
person?
and
we call them karmic agents.
Yeah, karmic agents, that's good. But
and
that's interesting to think of it being like a celebrity or a music star or something that's like just playing out that necessary karmic role for some message that some
Exactly.
community might get.
because they are like kind of like generating that opportunity for the collective to actually wake up
Or,
or to light themselves from
or
the inside out.
to get them deeper in control. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the third one, I don't believe there is a direct correlation between your suffering or the amount of harm that you, or like, not like harm, but like the affections that you can have on people, like my actions, how it affect you and what I get out of life. Because I could like get really good things.
Is it the concept of returns they're talking a lot about these days?
But that's the time aspect.
Yeah, because, that's like where Nastasha brought up time. You might be getting a lot of good things and causing a lot of damage now. But the good things you're getting could be stuff that you've earned and there's not enough time yet to experience the results of the damage that you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's, from our perspective, it seems like, it's when you see, there's people that get away with stuff and you think, how's that person always getting away with stuff?
And
When
exactly.
if karma is real, then why are they
And other
where they are?
people
Or
getting
like
people,
Or people, we all know people like that can just abuse like their own body and mind to just no ends. And they just keep going. They just survive. They can just take it. And you're like, I lived like that for a week and I did. But they can just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good example.
Yeah.
So those are, and I think, I don't know, that's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like a taboo thing to say, because like these three things, because as I said, it's like, it can like change a lot of, I don't know, maybe it's just gatekeeping. Maybe we shouldn't know certain things, but
we mentioned free will, and having this like freedom, but You have to also like know that that comes with responsibility. That's karma. Karma is, you know, the law. What do we say that? It's the law of like responsibility, but it's also like hope as well. But yeah, your actions, karma actions always have, you know, consequences, good or bad.
Whether you're aware of it or not.
So we have the freedom to choose, you know, but with that comes responsibility.
I love what Judge said, his simple answer to karma and reincarnation. He said, man plans and karma readjusts, or karma adjusts.
Yeah.
That's great.
And also karma and reincarnation, we have to have a little knowledge or a lot of knowledge. This life, my present life, is the consequence of my life before.
Or 10 lives before.
Okay,
When you
okay.
get prepared.
So the number is not significant. It's the present life, is the product of the many lives before. If I don't like it, well, I can say that word because I don't know what word I can say. If I don't like it, this kind of life and the product, you know what I'm looking about, I can change. I have the power to change for the next life. And not only for my next life, also for my relative, because we are in attached. My karma is attached to your karma. My karma, your karma is attached to more karma. So believe it or not, we are attached. Karmatic, we are attached. So if we don't like it, something, we have the power. That is a magnificent one. I love that. We have the power to change for the next. The present, we have to, you know, so we have to quemar toda la karma, o sea, todo lo hicimos mal, o no malo o bueno, because everything has the duality. Anything is only negative, no, I don't accept it. But anything also is only positive. They have the both, and we have to combine to produce better things or bad things. That's the magic of the life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go, Anders, do you have anything to add or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. You have an excellent morning out there.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks for coming, Rose.
Thank you, Rose.
We'll see you guys next week, hopefully.
Thank you.
Others, where are you?
He's in Sweden.
In Sweden?
Yeah.
Are you still at the lake, Anders?
No, I've been here for a week, coming back into, and then I might have to go into the recordings the following Mondays because I'm working early mornings the Mondays.
It's no problem. I understand.
We appreciate your attendance whenever you
Yeah.
can make it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody, have a great week. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Next week you're gonna do the history?
Yeah, we'll go back to history next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Grand Canyon, so it's like here.